Awesome. Well, we want to officially welcome you to our monthly webinar. We're really glad to have you here tonight. And we are going to be diving into a topic that is, we feel, both deep and incredibly important, and one that we also believe many people feel, even if maybe they've never had really the language for it. So tonight, the workshop is officially called Grieving the Person I Had to Become to Survive, when survival becomes self-sabotage. And what we're going to explore together is this. At some point in life, many of us became a version of ourselves just to make it through. We developed ways of coping, ways of showing up, patterns that helped us survive difficult seasons in our lives. But what often happens is that those same patterns don't just suddenly disappear when life changes and we're no longer in a state of survival. In fact, they stay with us, and in some ways, they run the show. So tonight, we're going to unpack why that happens, what's actually going on underneath those patterns, and then how real healing often includes grieving the identity that carried you through that season. So before we begin, I just want to take a moment to really honor you for being here, because conversations about grief, loss, and transition are not easy. And it takes courage to pause long enough to really face the deeper things of the heart. So we would love to know where you are tuning in from. If you can, share with us in the chat where you're zooming from, and welcome. So this is going to be sort of a part teaching, part reflection. So I would encourage you to take notes, grab a journal if you have one nearby, and most of all, just be willing to be honest with yourself tonight. There's a few things we want to highlight to really help you get the most out of our time together. The webinar is going to last a total of 60 minutes, with the last 30 minutes or so set aside for questions. Let me just say, we love questions. We also would love to see you and connect. I love everybody's cameras on. That's so great to see you all. I love that. And lastly, feel free to interact with us in the chat. If you have any questions, put those in the chat as well, and we will absolutely address them in our Q&A at the end. So that's our little housekeeping. Okay.
Yes. And we see people, lots of Texas and lots of Colorado in the house. That's so cool. Okay, well, first, we always like to share why we're here. And we want to share why this matters so much to us. Because we're not here just because we've studied this work. We're here because we have lived it. And both Dan and I know what it's like to become a certain version of ourselves to get through a difficult season. And sometimes those versions look like being the strong one, carrying more than we realized, that we adapt in ways that helped us survive, but later those ways shaped how we showed up in our lives and relationships. And what we discovered is something that we didn't expect. That even after things changed, even after things looked different on the outside, some of those coping patterns stayed with us and kept us in cycles of self protection and a lot of hurt from miscommunication. And it wasn't because we were necessarily doing something wrong. It was because those patterns of protection had served a purpose. And even when it was safe, we were still reacting from those old places. So the grief recovery work that we've both done and still continue to do has been one of the most powerful tools in helping us not just understand that, but to actually complete what we would call emotionally complete what was unfinished underneath that.
Mhm.
That's truly the only way you can change that. So we always share that grief recovery has impacted every area of our life, our relationships, our marriage, how we show up day to day. But more than anything, it's given us a way to release those roles that we once carried. So we're no longer living from a place of survival. And a lot of what we're saying here tonight is like emotional survival, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of the undercurrent here. So it makes such a huge difference when you're not reacting and responding to things from a part of you that is more interested in protection than trust and connection. And I think that's a big one that's worth repeating.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference when you're not reacting and responding to things from a part of you that's more interested in protection than in trust and connection.
Yeah.
And it's automatic. This is like a program that's running. So that's why we're here. And it's not because we want to give a message that you got to try harder, but because we believe that you and everybody deserves to lay down those versions of yourself that you have to become in order to survive and to step into a life feeling more present, more whole, and more free.
Yeah. So let me ask you a really obvious question.
Yeah.
What is the brain wired for? Now, some people might assume that the answer is happiness or purpose or fulfillment. Those are all lovely ideas, but the brain is actually wired for something much more basic: survival. And survival is a powerful, powerful driver because if the brain ever associates something with danger, even something that's good, like growth or visibility or connection or success, then it is going to override your desire to move forward. That's how strong it is. And that's also when something confusing starts to happen. For example, you want something, but then you can't seem to move toward it. Instead, you hesitate, procrastinate, overthink. You pull back. You avoid opportunities, people please. You doubt yourself. You overfunction, carry everything alone. And then comes the really hard question: why do I keep doing this?
Yes. So many of us assume our that a problem might be a lack of discipline or motivation or our mindset. But what if the problem isn't weakness at all? What if these patterns are actually survival skills? Because at some point in your life, you became a certain version of yourself to make it through, to fit in, to not get in trouble, right? Maybe you were the strong one, the caretaker, the achiever, the peacemaker, the one who didn't need help, the one holding it all together. Yes, I see, Aisha, all of them. Yeah, I can relate. These aren't personality traits, they are adaptations, and they helped you survive something real. Maybe it was loss or trauma. Maybe it was a lack of stability. Maybe it was disappointment or rejection, or even just emotional overwhelm.
Hmm.
That was a part of you that's responsible for your protection. So, if any of these roles resonate with you, and if you're comfortable, type the role you became in order to survive in the chat. I
Yeah,
appreciate Aisha, all of them. I can relate to all of them too. I think
yeah,
probably my biggest one is probably the achiever, the one holding everything together. I definitely, that's a, it's a very heavy load to carry.
yeah, it is. It is. And so what
Yes.
happens is the patterns that used to protect you may now be the patterns that are keeping you stuck. I mean, you may be in a completely different season of life now, but your nervous system may still be operating from the old one. So let me give you a few examples. If being visible felt dangerous, then part of you is going to resist being seen. If speaking up, standing up for yourself, led to rejection, part of you will stay small and quiet. If rest felt unsafe, then part of you will be in constant motion. What looks like self sabotage is often self protection. And just that little pivot in our thinking changes everything. Because letting go of that identity can literally feel like you are losing part of yourself. That's why, in an effort to find healing for the past, many people will go to therapy and they process their experiences. They gain some awareness. But then something kind of surprising happens. The patterns often remain. because those patterns didn't just come from experiences, they actually became part of our identity. The I'm the strong one, I'm the responsible one, I'm the one who holds everything together. And as I mentioned earlier, letting go of that identity can literally feel like you're losing part of yourself. So small wonder we hold on to it so tightly.
Really. So this is a part of grief that most people never talk about. And it's mostly because they don't have the language for it. Healing isn't just about processing what has happened to you. It's about grieving the version of you that was built to survive. So the one who stepped up too early, the one who held everything together, the one who learned to be whatever was needed, no matter the cost. And if you've always been the strong one, who are you if you stop carrying everything? If you've always been the caretaker, then who are you if you stop fixing everything? If you've always been the one holding it all together, what happens if you finally let it set it down or let it all fall down?
Mm.
That sometimes I can feel it in my body, right? Do any of you have that nervous system response of I can't let it all fall down. What's going to happen? So these questions, they don't just create uncertainty. It actually surfaces a very real grief because that version of you wasn't fake. It was faithful. It got you through. It protected you. It helped you survive. And now you're being invited to release it. Not because it was wrong, but because it's no longer required. And letting it go can feel less like growth and more like loss, which is
Yeah,
so interesting to think about.
yeah, yeah.
So we want to really speak this so loudly before anything can be released. That part that protected you needs to be honored. It carried you, it helped you survive something hard. And we want to say that part is not the enemy. It's so important to recognize that. But that part might have cost you something. Maybe it cost you peace, maybe joy, maybe it cost connection. We can isolate when we feel unsafe, right? Maybe it cost you authenticity, the ability to be real. And that grief deserves to be acknowledged. In fact, it needs to be acknowledged because healing isn't about eliminating the parts, it's about releasing the role that it had to carry. So you don't destroy this survival self, this part of you. You free it from the job it never meant to be doing forever.
Mhm.
Very
Yeah,
powerful.
that's huge. That's huge. Yeah, and this is where the grief recovery method, I think, becomes really incredibly powerful because it gives you a structured, safe way to complete the emotional experiences that created those survival roles in the first place. And this isn't about endless processing, it's what we call emotional completion. When grief is completed, the nervous system no longer needs the same protective patterns. But here's the good news: healing is possible. If you take a moment to think about the part of you that learned to survive,
Mm.
just pause a moment to really think about the part of you that learned to survive, and then just ask yourself this question: what did that part protect me from? And what did it cost me to carry that role? Right? Just sort of think about that in the back of your mind.
Yeah. And you might even want to write those questions down and kind of marinate on them for a couple days because it's a very interesting and there's a lot of insight in that. And what we have come to realize in the work that we do is the truth is that you can't move forward freely while still carrying the emotional weight of unresolved grief. These unresolved experiences don't just stay in the past. They shape the version of us that learned to survive. And over time, that survival version can become what holds us back. If we believe that things don't work out for us, we will never step in, we will never allow it, we will never receive it, what is out there, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That part has a role and that part needs to do its role. That's why it's so important to recognize it.
Mm.
So, this is why everything begins with finding freedom from the pain of unresolved grief, trauma, and loss, so that you can have the freedom to live, relate, and show up as your whole self, not just this survival version of you.
Yeah. And if something in you recognizes this, not just in your mind, but really in your heart, perhaps you should consider that an invitation because this is the version of you that survived. This is the version of you that deserves compassion. But know that you don't have to keep living out of survival forever. You're actually allowed to become whole. And so the grief recovery method is a structured action program that gives you a compassionate roadmap to process buried emotion and to really reclaim your true self. And you're guided through this process with caring support and curated resources as you learn to name each loss. You're basically giving language to the grief you haven't been able to say, and then experience real emotional renewal and self integration on the other side of that. The path is not meant to be walked alone. We're committed to giving you the encouragement and practical tools that you need as we celebrate every step leading to the promise of wholeness. The grief recovery method is the only evidence based program designed to help you get emotionally complete with losses of every kind. And again, the point is not to forget or get over them, but to really experience freedom. So if tonight has stirred something, if you recognize yourself in this kind of in between state, then we just invite you to take the next step with us.
Yes. And the way that grief recovery works is it's an 8-week program, one-on-one coaching experience. And it's really designed to help you move beyond survival patterns by completing the grief underneath them. So we meet weekly for 90-minute sessions over Zoom. We guide you through the grief recovery handbook because it's just how it is amazing. We help you uncover, process, and complete emotional experiences that have shaped the version of you that had to survive. And as that completion happens, the part of you that have been working overtime can finally begin to relax. And this deep intentional work is where we are with you every step of the way. And what we believe is what brings integration. We're not trying
Mm,
to get rid of these parts. We're trying to bring them together and integrate. They're powerful parts. We don't want to lose
yeah,
them, but we want to integrate them. And
yeah,
if you are here and you have done grief recovery, if you are one of our very special and beloved alumni, then we want to welcome you back and we want to encourage you to continue your work through alumni sessions. Because every time you do the work and you graft other relationships, it brings deeper levels of healing and clarity. So I love to say that there's such an incredible value of the program. And when you consider that all these things are at stake, your emotional health, your general happiness, your relationships, and you begin to see the value that this program has, because it really has the ability to heal on such deep levels. And we have personally spent years and thousands of dollars on therapy, self help books, seminars, and programs. And although they've all been helpful, definitely, they never really got down to the root. And we never really experienced the transformation that we've had with this process, which is why we feel so compelled to share this with everyone. So the real value of this program is incredible, and we would love for you to experience it for yourself.
yeah. And again, just if something shifted in you from what has been shared tonight, then we would love to invite you to a complimentary conversation. This is a no pressure space for you to be heard, to talk about whatever feels unfinished, and then to explore what support might look like for you. But before we show you how to book a call with us, we want to say something really important. Some of you are here tonight because a grief recovery specialist you know and trust invited you. And if that's you, we want to honor that relationship. So please reach back out to them. Let them know what moved you tonight. I know they would love to talk with you through this next step. And if you found your way here directly through us, then we would be honored to have that conversation with you ourselves.
Yes. So this is a little glimpse at the process and the program. The total value of what you get is the a free call to set it up, a free consultation with either Dan or myself. The Grief Recovery Handbook is what we use as the cornerstone, the foundation of everything. It's backed by more than 40 years. It's probably like 45 by now of research. And this program is considered the gold standard in recovery from grief and loss. So it's 8 weeks of sessions and ongoing support in between. And it's all valued at $1,200. But we want to give you something as a special thank you for joining us on this webinar tonight.
And so, for anyone that's ready to take the next step, we are inviting you to book a free consultation call with either Vicky or myself, and we will take $100 off the 8 week grief recovery program. So during our consultation call, we'll explore how we can support you. We'll answer all of your questions. And then, if you're ready, we'll create a personalized roadmap for your healing journey. And also, I want to point out that if you are an alumni, then we encourage you to book a consultation call with us as well, because there is even more healing and growth waiting for you.
So we just really are so honored that you're here with us tonight. And we want to say that these parts of you formed because something mattered and they carried you, they protected you, and they helped you survive. And now you don't have to survive in pieces anymore. We want to leave you with this. You are not behind, you are not broken, and you are not failing in life. You are standing on the threshold of a brand new season that is filled with possibility, hope, and healing like you've never experienced before. So now is the time to begin. And like Dan was saying, imagine what it could be, how things could be different, what life could look like if you had the tools to release the pain that could be weighing you down and the space to dream again. Because when we are in that other place, it's about what survival. And you can't dream or really move forward when you're in a state of survival, whether it's emotional, whether, all those levels. And so we want to invite you to take that step, book a call. We love to hear your story. We would love to learn more and to share more with you. And if you were invited by someone, reach out to them. So we will have our Calendly link in the chat. And actually, I did not get those ready. So we will send those to you in the email because if you're here, you will get the replay sent to you tomorrow and that will have the links in there. It's easier that way anyway for you. But we're excited to get to know you more and hear more about your story.
Yeah. So before we close tonight, we want to take some time for any questions that you might have. Like I said, honestly, we love questions and we are happy to stay on until every single one of your questions is answered. So whether you are wondering about something we've shared this evening or maybe how these ideas connected to something inside you, or maybe just a little bit more about the grief recovery process and how it works, we're here for you and we're happy to answer any questions you have. There are no small or unimportant questions. If it's on your heart, it matters. So you can either drop your question in the chat, or if you'd like to share, you can unmute yourself and just put the question out there. And like I said, we'll stay on as long as needed to make sure that every question is answered.
Yes. This is a deep topic here. And I so appreciate what you guys have shared in the chat just about really recognizing these parts of you. And if anything is coming up as you're talking about it, and there's no right or wrong, no question that's not um, very valuable. So if anything is coming up, even as you're thinking through, okay, wait, I have a question. Let me get my glasses on. Have you, okay, about have you ever had a client who wanted to do both in person and Zoom for convenience? Are you open to doing it? Yes, actually, I have. When I'm working with someone who is local, who is nearby, I have done that. We have. I had actually had a client recently who lived a little ways away, like an hour away, but she really wanted to do some in person. So we actually met for some in person and some on Zoom. Um, yes, I am open definitely to doing that.
Okay,
It was,
thank you.
oh, yes,
The
absolutely.
the reason I ask is because so we've met each other on the calls for organizing for the conference. For
Yes.
those that I don't know, I'm Gina Waterman and I'm a grief recovery specialist in Dallas. I just asked because I hesitated to do that with some people only because of the, I don't know, back and forth. But if you're saying you've had success doing that, then that's a good thing.
Mm.
Well, and I think that it would depend. One thing is, before 2020, we
Uh-huh.
only did it in person, right? Before all of that, and everything kind of shifted to online. Online is way more convenient. And before we had to rent space and we did it in groups. So now if I do it in person, it would be, I don't necessarily travel to them, but they would come to me. Um, and that you would need to be comfortable with someone, you know, coming in your home and having a place that you feel good about doing it. The people that I have worked with, largely our clientele is referral based. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a sense, but you want to make sure that you feel safe, especially if you're doing it one on one, that you feel
Yeah.
safe first and foremost. And yeah, I think that's definitely your call. I wouldn't, there's, if I am working, like, usually because Dan and I both do grief recovery, he usually works with men. And, but I have worked with men in the past. One on one, I wouldn't meet in person. I would meet online just for, I think that
Right.
it would kind of, I would say it would be a case by case.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you. It's good to know.
Hmm. Yeah. Great question. Thank you for that.
Can I ask how you guys got started? Did you happen to be working? Did you actually go to the grief recovery as a couple, or how did the? I didn't catch that part of your history together. How you started this?
Yeah, I actually was there was I was kind of wrestling with a lot of issues with my mom who had passed away, and she had had a cardiac arrest, and my dad and I took care of her for several years. She was basically an invalid, and so there was a lot of pain around that relationship. And there was a friend of ours that suggested that I do grief recovery, and I was unable to do it because I was currently working on my teaching credential at that time, and I had class conflicts, so I wasn't able to do it. And then they talked to Vicky, and they said, "Hey, you should do it." And she was like, I don't know. And then I'll let you fill in the rest of your story.
Well, it was interesting because this was in 2003 and my parents were getting divorced and I was going through it. And I got sick. I got adult onset asthma and I was really sick. And I had no idea that there was a connection, that the body overrides. And if you hold stuff in long enough, you're going to get sick. It's going to go somewhere. And so the same friend that encouraged Dan encouraged me as well. And my first thought was, I really don't need that. No idea that I was so stuck in grief. And so I went through the process and it was so transformational for me. I knew this was different than anything I'd ever done. And I had done a lot of therapy and counseling. And not long after I went through it, Dan went through, like, I think her next class after his class opened up. But I knew right away I need to do this. Like, I got certified right away. So Dan, we were married at that time, but Dan didn't really get certified until about 2020. But he was around it a lot. So when we first did it, it was just me, and I did it for a long time. But he came to almost to many of my classes, and he was there. He has done so much grief recovery work that he like knows it. And over the years, I kept saying you should really get certified. And so finally in 2020, it was time. And so he got certified. And so since then, it's been online. And so it's created a whole different dynamic. And so we both work with clients separate, but we've actually recently really started working with couples where we can work with both couples when they have things with their marriage, things with their communication. So that's been a really cool thing to open up that where we can work together and we can meet,
Yeah.
as couples and then work separately. So yeah, it has
Yeah,
been a total blessing.
Yeah.
that's awesome. I have to say, because when I took it, I was taking it just briefly. Probably like everybody has a story, right? But in 2000, what was it? 2019, 2018.
Mm.
I had just gotten divorced. My father had passed. Like the
Mm,
Bermuda Triangle was all at one time.
Yeah.
So I was really feeling it. And I said, I don't even know what loss to work on first. And um, my trainer, Cole, said, whatever's affecting you the most daily. And I was like, that's easy. That's my ex husband. I still have to uh, parent a child with him after this. So
yes.
anyway, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate and admire that you're doing it as a couple and that you're able to bring on couples or work with couples separately, obviously, because we had, not saying this would have saved it, but if I had found this earlier, it would have been just a blessing and so much more,
Yeah.
just a different take. We've done the counseling, like you said, and I had done a lot of therapy myself, but nothing like this. And I was like, okay, this is like amazing. So if people can do it or are thinking about doing it with their partner or at different times, I think that's just amazing. And it would add so much to their relationship. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh yeah,
I think it's a
absolutely.
great point, Gina, because it's a huge shift. Because I think like what we've found is most of the time people in their relationships, it's like you have two wounds arguing with each other, and then
Mm-hmm.
you never really get down to the bottom of, like, let's say you do go to counseling, or you do get, maybe a wise couple that kind of gives you some advice or something. You're still like never really getting down to the the thing, because you're sort of litigating, the argument, and, well, I said this and you took it this way and I didn't mean it that way and you shouldn't, like, and you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like doing all that, which, that's not that it's bad, but it just isn't really going to resolve the issue that
Yeah.
started it in the first place. And so
Yeah.
you kind of retreat to your respective corners, and maybe there's an uneasy peace for a while, but then the trigger hits and now the wounds are back at it, and now the wounds are arguing again. And so, it's interesting, like Vicky and I, we still argue, but you know what our arguments are like? Our arguments are like, I'll get mad about something and I'll say, you know what? I feel like what you're doing here is this, and this is what it's making me feel like. And I don't like that. And you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. This is not what and they're like, oh, okay. And then we're like back and then smooch and like, okay, we're good. So like we still
Right.
have like, conflict, but it's a completely different thing, because it's not, the conflict is just attached to whatever's going on in that moment. It's
Mm-hmm.
not connected to this whole length of wounds going into the
Mm-hmm.
past.
Right.
Or now our past wounds are coming in at each other's throats. You know, so it's just a huge game changer.
And one of the
Right.
things that I always tell people after, like it, when they're thinking about doing grief recovery, is the best thing you're going to get on the other side is clarity.
Mm.
And I feel like even in what Dan's talking about, there are also times that we can really recognize this is what's being triggered right now. How you said it or what's happening and, is triggering this. And we're able to recognize it. And And because we have done a lot of work and we also have graphed each other, which I highly recommend if you're married, is to graph each other. Not and don't read it to the person, of course,
Yeah,
because we know
yes.
how
Do not
how
read
it
it to,
works.
yeah,
Yeah.
do not do that.
But we've separately graphed each other, which is so incredibly helpful. Yeah, it's we're actually very excited because this Saturday we are speaking at a marriage retreat for the first time we've been invited to. And it's been really cool preparing for that and kind of talking about because it's like 3 sessions that we're doing. And it's really amazing how this work and this healing work, because what we're talking about is like you're talking about triggers when these parts of you come out and they're the ones that come out come out shooting a lot of the times. um it's really incredible to really see it and be able to recognize it and recognize it in each other, because we can recognize it in each other and have first you have to have grace and compassion for yourself, and then to be able to have that
Yeah.
for your partner. But yeah, I'm not sure all that you went through, but I can tell you with pretty good certainty there is a good chance we might not have made it without grief recovery when
Oh,
we did grief recovery. We were just married 5 years. We got married in 98. So we had just been married about 5 years when this came into our life, and it totally transformed it because we did not have the tools. We did not know how to
No.
communicate
nobody,
needs.
yeah, nobody has the
Healing.
tools. Nobody give it to you, and more marriage
No.
counselors need this program. I'm always
Yes.
like, if you have somebody you're working with, friends that are just various friends doing whatever, not even facing divorce, but I'm like, if you have somebody you're working with, please introduce them to this because I wish I had this sooner. How
Yeah.
do you,
Absolutely.
just one, I hate to
Oh,
monopolize, but one more
That's
quick
okay.
question because you can't control anyone else. But if you're in a relationship now, like I have been post divorce, and how do you influence, that's a better word, the other person that they might need to look at this? They've done other work through some actually very highly regarded um, personal work in the chaplain realm, right?
mhm.
So they have to do a lot of heavy personal work with that CPE. I don't know if you're familiar with the pastoral care and education that they do,
Okay.
but they do a lot of heavy personal work, very similar, touching on grief and other things. But I've recommended, hey, what if your people did this, and what if you did this as well, because you also have an ex.
Mhm.
And again, like I just find ourselves kind of sometimes in the same, we are able to recover, but it's
Yeah.
sometimes very painful. And I'm always going back to, okay, what do I need to do?
Mhm.
And it's just hard. I'm just going to say it right now. It's just really hard if the other person isn't speaking the same language of grief recovery. So how would you,
Yeah.
is there any influence that I can have on that? Just with that.
That's a really good question. And I think I hear your heart in that. Like you just want to really be on the same page with this person and build a great network of communication and be able to really, come alongside and complement one another. And I think that it's hard because on one hand, unless somebody really wants to do it, it like it never works if somebody's being leveraged into doing it or they're being guilt tripped into doing it or they're just worn down by fine, I'll just what I mean. But and it's hard because then the other hand is like you're someone who goes, oh, I know what it looks like on the other side of this. Oh my gosh, I want that for you. So it's hard to kind of be in that tension between that, because it has to be their choice, but also how much benefit they could get from it. And of course, when you have somebody that you care about, you want them to have as much wonderful things happen to them as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that is that attention, and I think it's just a matter of revealing. All you can really talk about is how much it's helped you and how much it's done for you and how as the areas come up, kind of highlight, wow, I used to respond this way to that kind of thing, or this used to really be a struggle for me, and or whatever. And then
Right.
I think that might kind of open I mean, and what's cool is you're dealing with somebody that clearly they're open to personal work because of all the work they've already done.
Yeah, right.
So it might just be a conversation asking them, like, hey, I'm just, I was wondering, like, you're so good about this and you have such a heart for this personal work and for other people. And I'm just wondering, is there what the resistance might be about? Have you ever thought about that?
Good way to reframe it. Okay.
you know and then so maybe there's a way to direct, because like I said, it'd be one thing if, let's say, the person that you were in the relationship with is like they hadn't done any work and they weren't, they didn't work anytime soon, but you know what I mean, they're like, oh, that's tough. But this is at least a person who's in the frame of mind of like they see value in it, or they wouldn't have done as much personal work as they've done up to this point. So could just be a reframe. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good
It's a
question.
really great question though.
Yeah, really good. I mean, I can remember if I think back over, different times in our marriage where we were sitting at crossroads, and I just remember just kind of being honestly saying, I feel like I want to do this. I feel like this is calling, and I really want us to do this together because I feel like we will grow together. I don't want to do this and then grow apart, kind of like even putting forth like a vision, like the desire is connection,
Mhm.
and sometimes that might be helpful. But yeah, I think that was really good, Dan. Yeah, it is hard. But it's an interesting thing when I first, and I think all this happens for a lot of people when they first hear it. I don't need that. I definitely said that. I don't need that. And I was in it. I was so in grief and I had no idea. And I remember when
Miss
I
Vicky.
first heard, pardon?
I
Oh,
was just about to say that's what I was going to say to Gina from you is that I've taken grief recovery with Vicky, and then my husband did it at a different series, and it truly has helped our marriage because by dealing with the other things, we're able to identify like those triggers and help each other. But what I would say is that when I told my husband about it, when you're in it just like that, you can't see it. And so rather than talking about, like, I think we spend so much time learning about future grief and like what is grief. And that we think because we're already at a certain point in our life, everything that happened in the past no longer affects us. Like, oh, I've already been, like, I'm divorced, like for her husband, like, I'm divorced now. I'm already on to this next relationship. They may not even see it as like still an issue. And
interesting.
so
Yeah.
I always
Right.
presented it to my husband as like, okay, we've dealt with everything for the future, like the planning. Now let's take care of whatever was in the past.
Right. That's a good point. I'm sorry. I'm on my phone, so it's hard to read. Is it Aisha?
Aisha.
Aisha.
Aisha. Thank you. Because I mean, I feel like I've done so much work on my ex. It was a 25-year relationship, so it was pretty much since,
Mm.
most of my adult life, since college. And it was, and I do PS letters, I do the whole thing, if, for those that are familiar with that on the call. But I constantly feel like there's more to uncover because again, we get triggered and we are now guardians for our son who is special needs. So we will have a lifetime of having to deal with each other in terms of
Yes.
all those things. And it's gotten a lot easier. Don't get me wrong. And he's remarried right away, so I'm having to deal with like all the layers of different things that have happened. And
Mm.
I feel like I've done pretty well, but there's always something that like comes up, and I'm like, geez, I thought I was done, and I still have more work and more work and more. Like it's just constantly coming at me. I'm trying to. I've given myself. I've tried not to be so hard on myself because we all know, right? I mean, it's just going to keep coming at us. You just ways of um, coping mechanisms, and also making sure you are doing kind of a maintenance, I call it maintenance work
Yes.
on myself, and knowing that, okay, I probably need to work on this loss now, or this, whatever's bothering me. But I feel like, just to wrap that up, it's never quite done with that
Mm.
individual. And it is keeping me from fully trusting, and it is causing issues in the current relationship, and I know it and I realize it. But it's a two-way street. I can't do it alone. It's just like
Yeah.
when I was in my marriage, I couldn't do it all. I was expected to, I don't know, fix myself. And I'm like, we're in a marriage. It's not, I can't fix this. It has to be us. Are we in this together or not? At some point it got to that, you know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know. I come back to praying that when the time comes, and if it is the right time for this other individual, that they will see it as an investment in the relationship rather than an attack or a critique of the fact that they haven't done as much work or whatever it is, right? Because that's I think what's keeping him from looking at this is that it's a critique on he hasn't done enough in terms of his personal work.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
Yeah, that's very
anyway,
interesting.
That is
thank you guys.
interesting. No, that the
No,
cool thing
thank
though,
you.
Gina, is you're like putting your finger on such good questions that are, I think, to the core of this work. And even like you mentioned, you have a special needs child.
Hmm.
I worked a lot with special needs in education, and one
Hmm.
of the things that's interesting about parents is that they really experience this in the lost hopes, dreams, and expectations because this
Hmm.
isn't the story that they thought their kid would be living.
Right.
And the hard thing is, their child isn't living a bad story. They're just living a different story than the one they thought they'd be living. But then
Absolutely.
parents, being hard on themselves like they usually are, then parents feel guilty for that. And then they feel bad for feeling bad.
Hmm.
And now it just compounds. And now
Right.
there's like a whole, and I don't know if that dynamic comes out in your relationship with your ex, but I do know that,
All the time.
yeah, I do know that
Because
that's
there's
also,
always yeah, there's always another. My son is actually 20. He's gonna be 22 soon.
mhm,
So um and it's been a journey all through all of it because it was from birth really that he's had some
mhm,
issues. Anyway, what I will say is that there's always kind of one person, one partner, usually in denial. And that's what also causes another layer of complexity and grief and all the things in that relationship. So if
yeah,
you do have a marriage like ours, that where we were married, like I said, for 21 years on paper, and I waited until I was almost 35 to have a child. So it's only one child with him. But if you have cracks in your marriage, I tell people this. It wasn't autism that broke us. It just magnified it 10
mhm,
times over. So we had
Yeah,
trouble from the get go. And so it was just harder and harder to rebound when that you have that layer and then someone's in denial that it's even happening. And so we see things very differently. And like I said, I've done a lot of personal work and thankfully met a community that has helped me
mm,
to get what I need to get done for my son. But also, yeah, we feel it all the time. And as I
yeah,
said, you have to keep working on it because it keeps cropping up. It's an ugly head,
yeah,
not just with my ex, but with my
yeah,
uh, holding my son back in certain instances of those chapters, those ages and stages of his growth, seeing him as a baby still or a young kid versus an adult man. So there's that too. There's grief in that.
right.
So
Definitely.
anyway, it's a journey, but that's why I'm saying to you, like, it's wonderful you're doing this work, and it's great you're going to be in uh, doing more talks with marriage married couples because it's so needed, and I think it's fantastic. So
mhm.
congratulations for that. Keep
Thank
doing
you.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Hmm.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a journey. And I think that what we're talking about tonight in particular, like this part, and kind of like, I think even after you do grief recovery work and you get complete with those foundational relationships, which brings so much clarity, then you're kind of dealing with the patterns, your own patterns of survival and going. And so this is really kind of taking it even to a deeper level of really understanding that and recognizing that and the clarity. So, yeah, Gina, let me know if you ever want to like just book a call. We can definitely chat and um, see what, you know, we go a little deeper there with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure for sure. Yeah, this has been such an amazing topic. This has been something that I've really been delving into, and I feel like our last webinar that we did last month was on like kind of looking at these parts of ourselves and how we get fractured when we go through trauma and loss, and we get fragmented, and we're kind of living like that. And how I believe what the grief recovery method helps you do is integrate these parts as we get the deep healing. And so, we always recommend we do more work all the time. Like I do graphs and we do work all the time, and to really recognize the tool that is so powerful and what it can do.
Mm.
So, very, very encouraged by that. And this has just been taking it deeper and deeper, is really these parts of ourselves. So thanks for your questions, Gina. Really, really
Yeah,
good.
that was awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And Aisha, thanks for your input there. Yeah, but it's a great call. It's a great topic, and something like we were saying with those questions. Think about that. Think about the part, how what did you become? And I some of you guys put on here like caretaker, all of
Mm.
them um still. And yes, and it's so challenging to not go into that. When we're triggered by something, those roles are what's going to come up. It's like
Yeah.
a little soldier, front and center, man. Like, I'm here reporting for duty. And that's not a bad thing. It's just learning how it's almost like that part comes and then the other part of you just sort of goes away. So it's how do we
Yeah.
integrate this and how do we recognize we don't want to get rid of that part? It's like we said, it's not about getting rid of that self. It's about integrating that, and so that we can come from a place of peace and a place of integration, which is bringing clarity. That's the bottom line, is having clarity in the moment, because we're not going to never not be triggered by things.
Yeah.
No, we're not. I mean, you could be moving along just great and you watch a movie and maybe you've even seen the movie before. This happened to me recently. All of a sudden I'm crying. I'm like, what is happening right now? What just got triggered here?
Yeah.
And it's something in there. And I believe that it's the timing, and it's like, I'm to go a little deeper. Okay. And I've learned to just say, okay, I'm ready to go deeper. And, doing the journaling work, doing this, what is this revealing? Like, so there's a lot. And actually, I had this thought, and I wasn't going to mention it here, but it keeps coming up. I'm thinking about doing a workshop on how to actually grieve the part of you, and doing a workshop, because I thought, I think I'm going to write a letter and like using the tool. So
Mm.
that's something on the back of my mind. So if any of you feel like, oh, that sounds interesting, let me know what your thoughts are. That thought, I didn't even say that to Dan. He didn't even
Yeah,
know.
I'm finding out. This is how I find out about most things, though, is when she's talking to other people, then I find out what's going on in my own life.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
true.
that's how it
Yeah.
works.
But I was just thinking, because I felt like, okay, a lot has, as we've been preparing for this, this last week, a lot of things have been coming up, a lot of emotion for me. And I was like, wow, because this was for me, trust me. Like, and I was excited to share this, but this has been definitely something sent for me. And so I thought I should write a letter to this part of me.
Mm.
And then I thought, what a cool workshop that could be. So thoughts. We're always thinking of things. We're always the wheels are always turning. But we so appreciate you guys being
Yeah.
here. And if there's anything else, we'd be happy to stay on. But we also want to. Oh, I see. Yes, that would be great. Aisha, thank you. Thank you for tonight. Yes. Yeah, if you think so we'll probably be fleshing that out. But thank you guys so much for being here. If you do have a question, something that you don't really want to put out here, please set up a call. We are
Yeah.
happy to talk anytime. We do have a Calendly link, and I'll also put our number. You can text me, um, and you will get an email from us tomorrow with the replay. Marilyn made it. Hi, Marilyn. It's good to
Hey, Marilyn.
see you.
Yeah, I wanted to come in, but I couldn't reschedule my
Yes.
client. So I was like, well, at least I can come say hello and see your smiling faces, and then I'll feel connected to it and I'll do the replay. And yes, on the workshop, sign me up.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, it's great to see you. Yes, thank you
Yeah.
for your communication. So we'll let you all go. Thank you so much for tonight. We'll be hitting the record. Um,
It is. Oh,
There we go.
did it
So
stop?
thank you all for being here, and we will stop the recording.
Yeah.